for the school.
Roll for us, please.
Director Azari.
Present.
Director Bentley.
Present.
Director Campos-Spitzy.
Present.
Director Mash.
Present.
Director Matthews.
Present.
Director Norwood.
Present.
Director Sullivan.
Present.
All board members present.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. We'll go on to our calendar review and community engagement. So everybody has a calendar in front of them. A few things coming up. Thursday night, we have the Greeley State of the City Address. We also have the CASB Winter Legislative Conference. Is anybody going to that? Are you going to that? Okay. Okay. Thank you for doing that. Then, not on here, but an important event for the district is the Arts Walk on Friday night. So if you want to come and see what our kids are producing, you can come downtown to just about any restaurant, and there'll be maps available, I'm sure, of where all you can see.
This Friday night?
This Friday night, yep.
What time?
I think it's 6 to 9, 5 to 8, maybe. So
Yeah, I have 5 to 8.
yeah, 5 to 8.
5 to 8. It's also at the Ice House, the Rec Center.
Is there like a starting point, or that follows their map, or how does that work?
Yeah, I'm sure there is a map or like shows all the locations, but
I would start at the therapeutic center. That's where the main display is.
The therapeutic
Okay.
center?
The natural therapy center.
Like the massage therapy place?
Right there on 8th.
the weld that went across.
I get off work.
It's hard to miss it. You'll get to see a lot of art if you come downtown on Friday night. Then, Well Distinguished Citizen of the Year award, that's Saturday night. And then next week is negotiations. And then we're done until after spring break, and then we go to Montfort and Twinkton. And then the Dream Team Honors Scholarship Banquet. So we'll stop right there. Anything else that needs to be on there? Anything that you guys know about?
President Matthews, if I could just get RSVPs for that Dream Team Awards Banquet by March 6th, I would appreciate it. I put it on your calendars today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you email us?
Today. Yeah, this afternoon. I think. If not, I will resend.
I will check.
I had just RSVP'd like individually, like literally
Oh,
it was
okay.
almost like you were reading my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So should I probably cancel that RSVP?
No,
It doesn't matter, they'll figure it out.
They'll figure it out.
Okay.
Thank you.
When is it?
March 28th.
March 28th.
6 p.m. I can see.
It's a card that's in front of you too.
Oh yeah, it's this guy.
Oh, right there in front of me.
Anything else needs to be on our calendar that you guys know about? All right.
Oh, I
Yes.
was just gonna say, the two musicals at Greeley West and Greeley Central are this weekend and the next weekend. If you want some more art and culture opportunities.
And Greeley West starts this weekend, Friday, Saturday. Then they're performing also the next Friday, Saturday, and then also next Wednesday through Saturday, I think, is Greeley Central. So,
Well, what did the, I know it's Mean Girls.
Mhm,
but
and
what's the
the
other
girl-
one?
Guys and Dolls.
guys and dolls.
And Director Mash's daughter will be in Guys and Dolls, playing a pretty lead role.
And also Wit.
Oh, and also it.
My wife's going.
Yeah.
Yep, she got tickets.
Yeah, both of those should be good. Anything else? All right. We'll move right along to board member comments and reports. And we'll start with you, Mr. Azari.
All right, thank you, President Matthews. I'd like to report out on 3 items this evening. First, I attended my second meeting with the student wellness team. This time it was with the team leaders spring meeting on February 13th. I'd like to recognize our wellness team leaders and specifically note how much I appreciated their meeting organization and punctuality in regards to their meeting agenda. It's very impressive and obviously well thought out and administered. I also appreciated the discussions and creativity of the district staff when it comes to supporting our students throughout our schools towards making healthy choices when it comes to their physical and emotional health, including the 5210 Plus Challenge, establishing 5 healthy habits with 2 hours or less of screen time, 1 hour of exercise, no sugary drinks, and 9 or more hours of sleep a night. It gave me a lot to think about. On Thursday, February 15th, I had the honor of chaperoning Reagan and Natalie, along with our legal counsel, Nate Fall, to Denver to attend the CASB Student Day at the Capitol. And from what I see on the agenda, we'll talk more about that in a couple minutes. Finally, last week I joined several of you, my fellow board members, while we toured the Early College Academy. I personally was impressed with the partnership that exists at ECA between the school district and Ames. It's a unique partnership in my opinion, and I found the campus and the classrooms to be positive places for students to learn and impact their futures, and was very impressed by the students at the school. And just to note that I appreciated, by the way, the listing of businesses and other organizations who partner with District 6 in regards to intern opportunities for our students. And I was surprised in watching the News 7 report that our district leads the nation in the number of smart labs we have in our schools. That's a significant accomplishment. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Dorn. Kyle?
Yeah, I got to attend state wrestling tournament from February 15th to the 17th. A lot of District 6 representatives there, charters and other schools combined. I think for the most part, everybody had a good showing. Represented Greeley well. And then I think the 21st, me and Brendan were invited to Day Spring Christian Academy just to represent elected District 6 officials as school board members with Mr. Corey Newton in his civics class, and we got to stay for the morning and kind of answer questions and field them and just kind of talk to the students and tell them our story and give them a little insight into what it's like to be on the school board. So that was pretty cool. Then the 22nd, I got to attend the Greeley Area Chamber of Commerce annual dinner. I didn't go with the school board just because I had my own table as I'm a member, but I know Dr. Pilcher's on that board, and there's a lot of interconnections there, and the chamber's been a big advocate for the school, so it was just fun to see all those different people and everybody there. And then the 23rd, which was last Friday, we got to go to ECA, like Doran said, and that school is just always very impressive to me. The kids are so incredibly impressive that it makes me feel a little bit insecure. So congrats to you guys, and keep up the good work there. That's a fun place to be.
Thank you, Kyle. Rob?
I got to have the opportunity to go to 3 schools, Brentwood, Dos Rios, and Early College Academy. And I just have to say how impressed I am with the way that the teachers are working with our students to improve their math and reading skills. I don't know that a lot of people get an opportunity to see when they're actually working with these kids, but they really are individually trying to get the kids, and as groups, to get the kids up to speed on all the reading, writing, math, and things like that. And to get a chance to watch the teachers work and be a part of the classroom, get a chance to visit with the kids was really eye-opening for me. And then going to ECA and seeing all the good things that they're doing there with Ames and at ECA was very refreshing.
Thank you, Rob. Brenda?
Yeah, so like Director Bentley mentioned, he and I got to spend a morning at Day Spring with Mr. Newton's civics class, just telling them what it's like to run a campaign and challenges that we face as school board directors. So real fun morning engaging with those students. And then on the D6 side, I got to go to Dos Rios Elementary for the first time. I'd never stepped foot in that elementary school. And they really stand out in that they have the international IB program, International Baccalaureate program for primary schools, so K through 5. They've had the program for about 8 years, it sounds like, and are really proud of it. Put a lot of training into their staff to make sure that they're doing it well. So that was really impressive to hear about. Their principal, Matt Thompson, gave us an excellent presentation, including a great video where all of the staff of the school was introduced in case we didn't get to meet them that day. And then the following day, we got to go to Early College Academy, which also was the first time I was in that school. And just like has already been mentioned, a really impressive relationship between ECA and Ames. They actually have tutors that are employed through Ames who can do one-on-one tutoring for the students for free. And one of the students mentioned that they had access to them all the way till midnight before there was an assignment that was due. So that's pretty impressive support. And even I felt a little intimidated, Kyle. The kids were doing radians and the cell cycle, which I majored in biology, but I do not remember the cell cycle that well anymore. And then just getting to talk to some students. They were doing, there was an art class going on, and all the kids were doing different renditions of waves. And one student had a wave that was washing over a lot of items of clothing. And I asked her if she didn't mind telling me what that meant. And it was way more powerful than what I had imagined, and just highlight some of the mental health struggles some of our students go through. But the student talked about how a lot of the clothes that the wave was washing over represents ways to hide self-harm cuts, and that the wave was a way to wash that away, to stop hiding. Just really deep, and just a little bit of a look into our students' lives sometimes. And then did get to end the week with the Greeley Chamber of Commerce event. Always impressive, 1,200 people in that room. I think it really is the biggest event organized in Greeley every year. And just felt a lot of community in that room, especially after having run the campaign and getting to meet a lot of those people through that. So yeah, it was a great week.
Thank you, Brenda. Taylor?
Well, she's not even here. Well, I was gonna say thank you to Amy for the way she actually did seating charts. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but we had board members that were divided out, and it gave you the opportunity to visit with some teachers, principals, and other cabinet members, which was kind of nice to do since we don't have that that opportunity so often. And then honestly, I'm going to say one of my highlights was meeting with you this last week. So we visited and found we had a lot of commonalities, and the one thing that came out, I think that was surprisingly, I think for both of us, is that we don't like the cell phones that are in the classroom. It's definitely a disruption. Definitely takes away from the learning environment. It takes away from their attention span and the overall social skills. It's just pulling away from. And then just this morning, but I think the article came out yesterday, Colorado Springs is as a school that is taking away cell phones throughout the day. They go in a locked box, and it gets the kids to disengage from their phones, which I think is huge because their learning abilities have definitely been diminished. I just see it in my own kids and then kids that I tutor as well, because their cell phones are like right there, and as soon as they have a notification, if I'm tutoring them, they stop doing what they're doing and they instantly pick up those phones. So I'm thinking we're gonna have a longer conversation on this one. So yeah, but the Chamber of Commerce, Amy, you weren't in here. I don't know if that was intentional, where you put up board members between different tables, but thank you for doing it that way, because it gave us the opportunity to visit with the people we don't normally sit with and have that time with. So I learned some new things about some of the other schools and a couple principals and whatnot. So thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. Natalie?
So I also enjoyed the visits to Dos Rios and ECA, and we also spoke with one of the kindergarten teachers there at Dos Rios, and she was just sharing some of the challenges she sees with attention in her kindergarten classroom, and also sort of was wondering or potentially associating that with this generation being the iPad or the iPhone or the iGeneration, and that if she's trying to read a book or a passage, the kids are not paying attention. If she puts it on YouTube, they're riveted. And so just, yeah, fascinating challenges that we're facing with just our overall change in society. Going on, my own children don't read books. It's very sad to me. And so, yeah, I think that is an interesting thing to explore, whether or not we change for the students. That like is that part going away? Is that a place where education can be an agent of change, or how can we work with that? So
Have you seen that article?
yeah,
Okay.
I did.
Good.
Yep, and I think you know, it would have to be an entire cultural shift for our District 6, it would have to be system-wide, I think, because we don't want to put another thing on our teachers like policing other types of behavior. It would have to be like, this is the overall expectation. So I'm also interested in looking into that more. ECA is always so impressive, and then kind of like everything tying together. When I was at the Chamber of Commerce dinner, I was speaking with a woman whose son has been in a neighboring district but is going to come to Northridge for high school. But she said, just as she was researching all of the options in District 6, she was like, did you know we have a school that you can get your associate's degree at the same time? I was like, yes, I do know that. So it was fun that that was, on her radar as well. I enjoyed getting to dress like Marty McFly and pull out my husband's old Walkman. It unfortunately doesn't work anymore, but it still looks pretty cool for the costume. And then I also attended the Big Band Boogie Ball, which is a fun community event every year. This year it had the Greeley Central Jazz Band and Orchestra, as well as the University High School Jazz Band, who are very good as well. You feel like you're just at a professional concert, and everyone danced and had a great time and raised some money for the arts at Greeley Central. So, that's all.
All right. And I don't have anything to add. I think you guys have covered it well. So I was at Dos Rios and ECA and the Chamber dinner and Big Band Boogie Ball, which is always a fun event. Encourage people to get out if they have a night and just want to dance to jazz music played by, again, high schools, but also UNC's lab school was there playing as well. So we had some very talented musicians. But that's all I've got, and we're right on to Student Day at the Capitol update. I'm looking at you, Mr. Fall. Are you coming to make this presentation?
It's not for me, but I'm happy to support Natalie here.
Mr. Azari, I think all three of you were there.
Yep.
Do I just explain to you what happened?
Yeah, if you're the lead, Natalie, I wasn't sure who was leading this conversation,
I
but if you were picked by your group to lead that,
Yes,
go ahead and
I
tell us
was.
what you guys did.
Yeah, so Reagan unfortunately couldn't make it. She's over there at Central just because traffic is too bad to make it here on time. But we arrived at the Capitol, which we actually didn't arrive there. We arrived, I think it was called the Knights of something.
Knights of Columbus.
Knights of Columbus building. And we met with, I really don't know the names.
It was Matt Cook, who's Casby's lobbyist.
Yes.
Was kind of running it.
And so he just explained to us kind of what we were going to be doing and what we should be expecting, kind of like the expectations just being at the Capitol. It was my first time ever being at the Capitol. I've never been inside the building, let alone just like seeing it. I've gone to Denver, but I've never seen it. And so when we arrived, we just kind of toured a little bit the place. We learned about like the president pictures or portraits, I mean, and a little bit of just background on those. And then we had the opportunity to go to the House of Representatives section of the Capitol, and we just got to sit in some committee hearings and bill passings and stuff like that. Mary Young, we got to meet her afterwards. She kind of gave us a little shout out during the thing, which is really cool. And so we met with her. She kind of explained her role, why she wanted to become one of the representatives. It was very cool just seeing her vision of what she wanted for students, but let alone just the district and stuff. And so then afterwards we went to the Senate, and so we also sat in some committee hearings, and it was very cool because the Senate and the House are super different. So different. And in the House, it's very informal, that everybody's kind of chit-chatting, there's side conversations going on while everybody's like presenting stuff. But in the Senate, it's like you can hear a pin drop basically. And that to me and Reagan kind of was the first thing that caught our eye very quickly, just because we were just surprised about that. I mentioned that I would be super frustrated, and I would have been like a teacher and been like, "I'll wait," and kind of just wait to see everybody quiet down. But that was one of the things that caught my eye. And then we unfortunately did not get to meet with the senator. Oh, again, back to the names.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Yes, she's a busy woman, and so it's very cool because there's a balcony in the area, I guess, and so that's where all of their meetings are held. So when all the senators come out, everybody kind of just rushes towards them and they meet with them, and they have to go over here, they have to go over there, and so it was very interesting to see their way of just talking to everybody. Then we got to meet one of Nate's friends, his bro, as he called him, which is he's a legislator.
He's a
Lawmaker.
an attorney for the General Assembly.
Yes, that's what it is. And so he kind of told us a little bit of what he does. It's a very interesting job. I was very intrigued by it. He told us that the Capitol actually has tunnels, which I didn't know. Me and Reagan both insisted to tour them, but we could not. And so I don't have a report on that. But after that, we kind of just toured the building a little bit more. We met with the district's lobbyist, and Barkus, there we go. And so she, I think out of everything, was the woman that just stood out to me the most. Her job and role in the district just is so fascinating. I think I couldn't go through law school, but I do think that her job is just so important. You could tell that she's happy doing what she does, and I think that's the main thing. If you're doing with your job, that's the main thing that you should focus on. And so yeah, it was a very cool and interesting experience. I am super grateful that again, me and Reagan got selected to go, and I got to spend time with Mr. Azari and Nate, and we laughed a lot and talked about a lot, and so it was a very, very good day to go. So
Good job.
It's an awesome summary.
You did a very nice job with
Outstanding.
that. Seeing it through your eyes was nice.
Yeah.
What was your highlight and what was your low point?
The highlight was probably I'm a first generation student, so my parents, they were both from Mexico, and so they came here obviously with that American dream of just having a better life for me. And so to this, when I told them, I'm like getting teary. When I told them, it was like, oh my goodness, like you kind of like I made it. It was like an I made it moment to them. And so, oh my goodness, I did not expect to cry today. And so I think that was just entering the Capitol for me was like the main thing. And so everything that came with it is just the main highlight. And so I think the low point though was waking up at 4 a.m. because we left very early from here. But thank you, Nate, because he lives in Denver, so he drove down and then he picked us up and then he drove back up and then he drove down back and then he went back.
Oh my goodness.
Great practice for the new board.
Yes, that's exactly a point that we made too. Because he had not gotten a lot of sleep because he was at a class or something. I don't know, but yeah, I think those were the main things, the two things that.
Is your pathway directed to heading that direction, or?
My parents always said that I am in the wrong career path. They've always put it that way. I think Dr. Brenda, she met my mom.
Like she's supposed to be a politician, but she thinks she wants to be a physical therapist.
Yeah. My mom just thinks that I'm headed towards something that I'm not passionate about, and that's not true. I think it's just I've always had this vision, and it's kind of very funny because right now I'm taking an interpersonal communication class, and so we're kind of learning about like verbal communication. And so one of the main things we're learning about is like your ideal and your ought self. And so I think in my head, my ideal self would be a politician or be something working for a school district or doing anything like that. But my ought self is that other vision of me becoming financially stable enough to help my parents just because of where they came from. But if there's anything I've learned from not only sitting here with you guys, but also just going there, I think I could manage both in the future. If I wanted to, I could volunteer just like all of you guys and sit on a school board and do things that I feel very passionate for other kids. But I think that's kind of where I'm like leaning towards, and yeah, so I think in the near future, yes, there's a possibility. My grandma always says that she thinks I'm going to be the governor or something, and I'm like, I don't know about that one.
You have taken the floor and you made it yours. And you're very well spoken. And when you started speaking about your trip down there and what all took place, you were very lit up and very excited. So maybe keep that in there, because that might be an avenue for you.
Well, thank
Your
you.
mama might be targeting you for that one perfectly.
And you're steps ahead of at least where I was when I was in high school. I didn't even know there was a school board when I was in high school.
Well, if anything, I was in the same position where oh my goodness, I was in the same position you were in, because, a funny story, I ran for student body president at my school, and I didn't win. And that, honestly, it was very impactful for me, because I've always been the type of person that I've always wanted to just do a change for something, and I'm very passionate about ECA. Everybody that went, just can see that I really care about ECA. And so when I ran for student body and I didn't win, I really took a toll on myself. But then that same day that the announcement, or that I gave my speech, Miss Silva, our principal, she came up to me and she said that she nominated me and TJ Gurney to be a part of CSR. And so then when I got the position I have in CSR, as the communication specialist, treasurer, and then permanent student advocate on the board, I was like, I need to make sure I have 100% of my time is towards this, because it's something that I'm super passionate about. And so I was like, what the heck is the school board? I'm like, I don't even know. I'm like, I understand there's like higher ups, but I always thought it was just Dr. Pilch. Growing up, like, it's always just been Dr. Pilch. And so before I came to my first board meeting, I remember I looked everybody up. I already knew Dr. Brenda because of Sunrise and then my internship. And so I'm like, okay, so who's President Matthews, who's Miss Sullivan, who's Miss Mash, Miss Pappas. And so I was like, I need to make sure I put all my effort and my passion towards something. And so that's where I am here. So, yes.
Well, then maybe we're a little bit glad you didn't win. Then we got to have you.
I'm like, afterwards, I'm a little glad I didn't win too. But
I'm curious about something you said, and this is a question for you, Nate. Would you have to go to law school to be a legislative liaison?
To be a lobbyist, you can, I think, a political science degree or something in that area. Ann Barkis is a lawyer, or she was
Right.
a lawyer, which I think lends itself really well. But you don't have to go to law school. I think that you do earn some good skills from law school to do a position like that. But you could absolutely do physical therapy and be a lobbyist, something like that. So.
Yeah, I don't think that medicine and politics are mutually exclusive.
And I don't know if Mr. Azari wants to chime in, but I just want to say that Natalie and Reagan are so impressive, just really impressive students, and they're just light years ahead of where I was when I was their age, and they ask all the right questions, and just were really interested in the whole process. We did meet my bro, full disclosure, his name is Christopher McMichael. He is works for the General Assembly, and so I wanted to show them, who introduces the bill, like Representative Young or Senator Kirkmeyer, who actually writes the law, and that would be my friend Christopher, and then kind of who's behind the scenes amending bills and kind of doing things, and that was Ann Barkis. So I really wish we were able to meet with Senator Kirkmeyer, but as Natalie said, she is a busy woman. We kind of awkwardly stood near her for about 5 minutes, and I was like, this isn't going to happen. So unfortunately, we weren't able to make that connection, but otherwise, got a really cool tour of the House floor. They took us out on the balcony, which overlooks kind of the center, which they don't normally bring people out, but I enticed them with students. I said, hey, can we do a tour of this? And they said, yeah, sure. Are you got students? And then they brought us on the balcony. There's like a grill out there. It was really a cool experience. So, but yeah, just really, just so impressed by you. And I don't know, I'm glad you had a good day.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to add that thanks to Mr. Fall, it was great to see him at work in real time. He was busy down there doing two things at once, chaperoning students and doing the work of the district. So that was wonderful. Thank you, and kudos to Natalie and Reagan. I've taken students all over the world, and these two were exemplary representatives of our student body here in District 6. So thank you.
And it turns out Mr. Azari is a pretty cool guy too.
I just stand and watch you do what you do.
Thank you guys for representing. We do appreciate it. Reagan as well. So, any other comments, or you guys that conclude your report?
I think I'm good. I don't think I talked too much.
No, you didn't. You did a great job.
Yeah.
Great job.
Thank you all. Well, we'll proceed from there to our next agenda item, legislative update. Mr. Fall.
Passing the rest down here. Do you mind if I share a table with you here for
Of
this?
course.
Okay.
I think I shared your part.
So those are getting passed around. Thank you, President Matthews and members of the board. We have quite a bit of time to go through legislative update, and so I've provided for you a number of bills to kind of go through. We know that we're well underway into the legislative session for this year, so most bills that we had rumors about that were going to be introduced, I think at this point we know most of those bills have been introduced. So I tried to include in this report bills that have been sponsored by our legislators, Senator Kirkmeyer and Representative Young. But then there's a couple of other bills that I thought might interest you. And then, of course, if there's nothing I go over, or if you have any questions, let me know and I can go back and provide that to you at a later date. So the first bill I want to talk about is House Bill 24-1003. This is opiate antagonists and detection products in schools. This is a bill that was introduced by Representative Young, and it's my recommendation that we take a position of monitor or support for this bill. It went through the House second reading today. I will say I didn't update this because a few of these bills were actually reviewed today by either one of the whole floors or by a committee. I'm sure that there were some results, but I just didn't have time to add that to this. So what this bill does is it adds, let me backtrack. Right now, schools can provide opiate antagonists in school. We can have a supply and we can distribute them as needed. That means if somebody is overdosing from an opiate, we have Narcan on hand in our building to provide support for that individual to help alleviate the overdose in some way. This bill would add that buses and bus drivers can carry opiate antagonists, and it would extend civil immunity and criminal immunity for anybody who uses Narcan in an emergency situation. And if it doesn't go according to plan, you would be immune from suit. That's currently in law right now for our staff members. And we do carry Narcan in our buildings. We haven't needed to use it. We don't ever plan to use it, but we have it just in case as an additional service. There isn't any liability if we don't end up using it, but it's just additional support for those individuals who may be suffering from an opiate overdose. There is also, this bill would add an adoption of non-laboratory additive detection tests, which means you can actually scan a pill to see if there's any additives in that pill. Maybe it doesn't just contain an opioid, it may contain something else, that we could carry that to test narcotics that may come to our school. And the bill would also allow students to carry either some kind of opiate antagonist or an additive test detection device that they could use as well. So that's kind of what that bill does. I don't think it really impacts us from a liability standpoint. If anything, it just adds more support. We know that opioids are endemic in this country and they are quite problematic. Again, I don't think we've really faced that issue in this district, but certainly something to be considerate of.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
E is kind of disturbing to me. So why would a student need to carry a test kit for this? I mean, is it because they're currently using and they want to test to make sure that it's not laced? I mean, what is the reasoning?
That might be one reason, just to test it, or if their friend is suffering from a overdose, that they can kind of administer it right away.
I don't think, well, the way the summary is here, it doesn't say that the students would be able to administer Narcan. It just says the students can administer the detection tests.
Oh, you're right, yes, so it would be
Yeah.
just for the synthetic opioid detection test,
Yeah.
so, yeah, and that's all it would do, so.
And that's where I jumped to that conclusion, that it would probably be, I think it's meant to be a harm reduction. So the idea is if a kid is gonna use drugs, that they can test the drugs they're using to make sure they're not laced with fentanyl, because fentanyl kills. That's where my mind goes with it.
Okay. So
But that it would be, yeah, a harm reduction thing of like, we hate that you're using drugs, but if you're gonna use drugs, we hope you don't die of a fentanyl overdose.
It's a sad state.
Is
to
this
be in.
state to be.
legislation necessary in terms of like it allows students to possess or administer? Can't they already possess that test? Or if we were to, like, yeah,
They-
I'm kind of curious as.
Yeah, I thought about that, and I mean, there wouldn't be any disciplinary, there would be no discipline issued for a student carrying something like that. As far as I'm aware, I could be very wrong about that, but I don't really anticipate this impacting us that much. But certainly a position of amend to address the students possessing or administering is a position we could take as well, if that's something we want to kind of focus in on.
We would probably already have policy around the student in possession of drugs, right?
We do, yeah. Okay, thank you for those. Yeah, and please, any questions or comments are well taken. So the next bill I want to discuss is House Bill 24-1038. This is high acuity crisis for children and youth. This was introduced by both Senator Kirkmeyer and Representative Young. I recommend we take a position of either monitor or support. And this was referred to the House Appropriations Committee on January 31st, although I haven't seen it calendared yet for the House Appropriations Committee. This bill just expands programs for students who are either in or at risk of being placed in an out-of-home care. And so really just providing additional services or treatment or care coordination. I will say when reading this bill, it's unclear how schools are directly impacted, but of course, we do live in a community where there are many students who may be in or at risk of being placed in out-of-home care. It can be challenging to coordinate with varying entities in the community to support those students. So I certainly think there's some benefit to that coordination to support those students. Again, there's no requirements or obligations on the school district, but nonetheless, it could certainly support our students who are really vulnerable and at risk.
What kind of establishments fall under this umbrella of out-of-home care?
Meaning,
Like, for example, well, I'm not familiar with that term.
Like, what does out-of-home care mean?
Cover, like, what types of services are those?
Group homes or like halfway?
Are we talking like foster parents? Are we talking medical, or all of them, or?
foster homes, residential childcare facilities. Yeah, foster care. So it'd be a lot of our McKinney-Vento students who qualify for McKinney-Vento services would fall under that umbrella. Yep.
Okay.
Next is House Bill 24-1039. This bill is called non-legal name changes. I recommend we take a position of either monitor or amend for this bill. It did pass on party lines last week on February 23rd, and it passed the second reading in the House with some amendments. So this bill would require public schools to use the student's preferred name if that student requests that name change, if it's reflecting their gender identity. So this just doesn't mean that anybody can just draw a name out of a hat and be called whatever. It's just whatever name kind of aligns with their gender identity. It would deem a school's refusal to use a student's preferred name to be considered a form of discrimination, statutorily speaking. It would require school districts to adopt policy on this very issue, and it would also establish a legal name change task force. It's my opinion that this is already part of the law, that this is already required, and it just adds additional penalties on school districts who may not be necessarily abiding by these non-legal name changes. This just opens a door for potential liability, which I always think is concerning. And so it's my recommendation that we take a position of monitor or amend, particularly around policy adoption. I don't think it's necessary that we have to update our non-discrimination policies to include this information, again, because it's already my opinion that this is required by law anyways. So this bill is very much going to move forward on party lines, and so it's up to us to provide any potential amendments to the bill because it's more than likely going to pass.
What would the amendment be again, Nate, that you would propose?
I think it would be something that would either to remove the policy requirement or to provide some provisions around mistakes. You know, sometimes people can make mistakes and they shouldn't be held liable by law for discriminating against somebody for something that could be a justifiable mistake. And that's not included, as far as I can tell, in the law so far.
I thought we covered almost this exact topic. It seemed covered pretty well.
Right, and so the Colorado Code of the Civil Rights Code already includes this language. It's just not statutorily included. So this would just add it to state statute instead of just being enforced by the Colorado Civil Rights Commission. So.
When it says established as a task force, is that like a district task force or?
It would be a state task force.
Okay.
It would help identify kind of policy considerations as well as best practices to support students who come forward with a non-legal name change request. The next bill is House Bill 241044. This is additional para-service retirees for schools. It's my recommendation that we support this bill, and this did pass the second reading in the House on February 23rd. So how this works right now for para-service retirees is we're allowed up to 10 para-service retirees, which means we call them 110s. So they're folks that are kind of getting out the door. They've already worked their 30 years or however many years. And they can come back the following year without any changes to their benefits for 110 days.
It's 140 days.
Sorry, 140 days. Thank you, Annette. And so these folks are very, very valuable for us. They have a lot of institutional knowledge. They know how things work. They can very much support us with special projects and things of that nature. And these are really good employees to have. And so it's beneficial to have more than 10. This bill would expand it, so if you have 10,000 or more students, you get one additional para-service retiree for every 1,000 students you have enrolled. So in this district, we have 23,000, so we have about 12 or 13 additional para-service retirees on top of the 10. So we could hire up to 22 if possible, which would certainly be beneficial in many respects. And it wouldn't be financially significant to hire these folks. It would be really beneficial for us for financial reasons as well as just for operational reasons. So it's my recommendation that we do support this bill.
Why is there a limit, I guess, on how many you can have?
I had no idea there was a limit to
Yeah,
it.
that's an odd one.
It's like
for me.
Social Security and working, it's kind of the same thing, right? Like it's para.
Yeah,
plus
you're
there's
double
recording.
dipping, right?
Yeah, you're double dipping.
Right, and perhaps Ms. Overton or Ms. Sponsor could better answer the question about why there's only 10. Is it a financial reason or?
I think it is a financial thing for para, and so they do not like this idea of expanding the number of people that can continue to work during retirement and draw retirement at the same time. How they chose 10, I have no idea, but that's the number that we've been stuck with, and so we are very much in favor of supporting this bill, so it would be very helpful.
And it's 10 for each, right now, it's 10 for each school district. So Jefferson County gets 10.
Regardless of the
District 6
size.
gets 10, right? And so we're trying to even it out so that we have a little bit more balance for each, for the size district that you have. And with the opportunity, institutional knowledge, I think you touched on that, institutional knowledge is so important that we have these people come back and still continue to support our students and then also the work that we do at the district level too. So it's been very, very exciting to see that this moved this forward this way.
Thank you. The next bill is House Bill 241063, addressing abbreviated school days. This is a bill that was introduced by Representative Young. It's my recommendation we take a position of either monitor or amend for this bill. And this was referred to the House Appropriations Committee on February 15th. Again, I haven't seen a calendar yet for the House Appropriations Committee. So this bill really is dealing with students who are on abbreviated schedules. Those are students with disabilities who end up being put on abbreviated schedules for varying reasons. And so this bill would require the Colorado Department of Education to define what is an abbreviated school day, explain when abbreviated schedules are permissible or impermissible, what is the role of the IEP team in terms of making a decision around abbreviated school days, any notice requirements for a student who is in an abbreviated school day who wants to participate in after-school extracurricular activities. There are some documentation requirements, and then kind of an annual or semi-annual review of abbreviated schedules for students. The IEP team can reconvene to review an abbreviated schedule. CD would develop a training if this bill were to become law. And then there's a reporting requirement for administrative units like District 6, where we would have to report out the number of students who are on abbreviated school days, the reasons why, demographic information, et cetera. I recommend that we take a position of amend, particularly surrounding those reporting requirements, because it just adds an additional mandate on schools to provide reporting on information. It might be readily available, but it's an additional burden nonetheless. And then it also will kind of close the window on the number of opportunities we might have to provide abbreviated school days for students, though we know that sometimes that can actually be really beneficial to those students in their development. And we don't want to kind of close the door on being able to do that. So nonetheless, it could be a bill that we could just monitor and just see how it goes.
And I assume there's no funding that comes with these mandates.
I'd have to look at the fiscal note associated with this one, but my guess is probably not. My guess is there would just be allocation for the state. Yeah, so they're right now estimating it'll be about $200,000 to CDE.
So do we know why Representative Young is the one that signed on this? Because to me, this just seems like a little bit of an overreach since we already have the students being monitored with, IEPs in the schools and whatnot. This just seems a little bit more, I guess, aggressive.
So I haven't spoken with Representative Young directly about this bill, but I can certainly get some more information as to kind of her reasoning behind this and see if we can kind of get our foot in the door in terms of providing any amendments to it. So I'll reach out.
And Nate, don't the case managers at the school keep a lot of these records as well, or do they not, that work with these students?
Yeah, so we already, we
It's already there.
track a lot of this, but in
Sure.
terms of just kind of coordinating that information specific to students on abbreviated school days, I don't know if Mr. Gribble can answer that, but I'm sure we have it available, but just in terms of how long it will take to coordinate all that information and share it, probably will take some time. So. All right, the next bill is House Bill 241070, allowing certain items at school graduation. I also included House Bill 241323, school graduation attire, because there are bills that essentially say the same thing. It sounds like 1070 probably won't be moving forward from what I've been hearing. It might get postponed indefinitely at the House Education Committee this Thursday. So what this bill would do is it would allow students to wear or display any religious or cultural regalia at a graduation ceremony, and it would prohibit schools from restricting what students could wear underneath their graduation attire. And then it includes this kind of substantial disruption or material interference clause, meaning that if we see a student who is wearing something that is a substantial disruption or material interference, then we would tell that student, you can't wear that. You might guess where I'm going with this. That could be super problematic, especially if a student shows up the day of graduation wearing something that we might consider to be a material interference with the graduation ceremony. And what do we do in that point? We tell the student they can't walk, they can't graduate, and then the burden is on us to prove that it is a material disruption, to our school environment. Even if there's been no disruption, we'd have to later on prove that by wearing this regalia that it would disrupt school activities. I just think bills like this, while they have kind of the right heart behind it, it will just cause a lot of problems for schools in terms of managing these graduation ceremonies.
And I think currently, I mean, the students are allowed to wear stoles and decorate their caps, and I feel like they're already given a lot of freedom at graduation, aren't they?
Seemed like it.
It depends on the school and
Oh,
the
is it school
requirements that the
dependent?
administration sets forth.
This just seems like a lawsuit waiting to happen.
That's how I feel, Mr. Norwood. And, you know, religious regalia is one thing, but just kind of cultural regalia, I mean, it just really opens the door to a lot of things that we don't really even necessarily know or understand, and we're gonna have to make kind of in-the-moment judgments about whether or not something is actually culturally significant or religiously significant to that individual, and whether or not we need to block them from graduating or walking while they're wearing that attire. It's just somewhat problematic. So it's my recommendation that we either take a pretty strong position of amend or oppose for this bill. I know that most school districts, as well as kind of the state groups, CASE and CASB, do oppose this bill, which is why more likely than not, it's probably not going to move forward, just because a lot of school districts aren't behind it. So.
You don't happen to know, like, because usually there's some specific instance that happens that makes these things come forward. You don't know what that is, do you?
I'm not sure what the reason is, but I can find out.
It's not, if it's not going forward, it doesn't matter. Is graduation attire in our policy per school or?
Per school.
Per school, okay.
Basically the traditions set or the guidelines set by each school.
Okay.
And I think there is some benefit, not that I want every student to be the same, and it's not just me saying this personally, but I think as a district, you know, there is a need to maintain a little bit of kind of regularity with this process, because we just want to make sure that everyone participates fully in the graduation and gets a full experience out of it. So we'll see where this goes, and I'll continue to monitor it. And I may even speak at this committee hearing on this bill. The next bill is House Bill 241076. This is the Purple Star program, Purple Star School program. This passed the third reading in the House, so as a reminder, it goes through the committee, then it goes through the second reading, and then third reading, and then it goes on to the Senate. So we're now at the Senate Education Committee, where it was assigned on February 21st. And this bill creates what's called the Purple Star program in the Colorado Department of Education, and it's to allow schools to apply to become a Purple Star designated school, which has additional supports and resources for military families. Because a lot of those students end up having to do a lot of moving when they are in military homes. And it can be really challenging for those students to kind of pick up where they left off in a new school district. So any of those designated Purple Star schools will have additional resources and support. They'll receive some additional funding to provide support for those schools. It's just, there's no obligation. Certainly something we could consider applying for if this passes. I recommend we support it because I think it's important to support, especially our students from military families who, it's just very challenging for them. The next bill is House Bill 241087, Professional Endorsement Special Education Teaching. This was a bill that was sponsored by Senator Kirkmeyer, and it was referred to the House Appropriations Committee on February 15th. I think we talked about this in October. This bill aims to provide additional pathways for individuals seeking special education or early childhood special education endorsements. We know that this is becoming a position that a lot of people aren't necessarily going to school for right now. And so we're just trying to, the lawmakers are trying to provide additional avenues for current teachers and educators to get those special education endorsements so that they can support our most vulnerable special education students. So the program would create additional pathways which would require the current educator with a valid teaching license to pass the appropriate content exams, which would be praxis, and then they would also need to complete a specialized induction program. And if they do those three things, then they would get that special education endorsement without having to go through all the other education to get it. On the one hand, this sounds great opportunity to get more people in the door of special education. On the other hand, I spoke with Mr. Gribble kind of extensively about this bill, and I think we have some concerns surrounding rigor in this program and getting these individuals endorsements for this area, which is really the most litigious area when it comes to schools, that special education ends up being This is what school districts nationwide get sued on the most. And so we want to make sure anybody who's in those positions is very, very qualified to do the best possible job they can do. And we're not just kind of opening up the door for anybody to take these positions. So we want to make sure that whatever specialized induction program that they have really does have a lot of rigor, and it may take years to complete, so that we can make sure that anybody walking out of that program, is very much qualified to do the job, which is a very challenging job in many respects. So I would recommend that we take a position to monitor, or perhaps amend it to include kind of more rigor surrounding the induction program. Anything else? Moving on, thank you all for working with me here. House Bill 24-1096, School Psychologist Licensure Interstate Compact. This is a bill introduced by Representative Young, and it was referred to the House Committee of the Whole, which will be reviewing it tomorrow. And we've talked about these compacts in the past. This is just another one that allows for school psychologists to obtain equivalent licenses from state to state, so they can provide services without having to obtain an additional license. We could use all the psychologists that we can get, and if they're from another state and they don't want to move here but want to still provide services, that could certainly be a benefit for anybody in those member states. This thing will take time. It'll take other states to pass similar compacts, but nonetheless, I think it just opens the door to having more individuals who can help our students.
There's nurse licensure compact, like Colorado's a part of, like, I think it's something like 35 states or something, so you can move more easily between states, as well as, I didn't think about the, virtual support, but yeah, it'll just help expedite the process too if we hire someone.
Mm-hmm. And it seems to help too with those nursing compacts and things like that. And it makes people more free to move across the country. Mm-hmm. So it increases mobility. There's a lot of benefits to bills like this, I think. The next bill is House Bill 24-1167. This is prohibit student seclusion. This bill has not been assigned to any particular committee. I've been hearing through the grapevine that this also may get postponed indefinitely. Nonetheless, I recommend we take a position of either monitor or amend. And ultimately, this bill would just prohibit the use of seclusion rooms altogether. In speaking with some of the folks behind this bill, I was specifically told that Greeley is not the reason for this bill, that they don't have any concerns about Greeley. This is really addressing a few other school districts in the state and their seclusion practices. I will say that from time to time, in very rare circumstances, there is benefit to the use of seclusion rooms, particularly in those kind of high, perhaps violent situations where a student may be harmful to themselves or others, and we need to give them some time to cool down for just a short amount of time. They're closely monitored. It's all very much documented. I believe we have a very strong process in this district, and we use it very rarely. And so to close that door could be somewhat problematic in many ways. And I think we do want to still have the opportunity from time to time to use a seclusion room if necessary. Again, only in rare circumstances, and this isn't something that we eye or want to do, but sometimes it's necessary to do that. The next bill, House Bill 24-1168, Equal Access to Public Meetings. This bill has been assigned to the House Education Committee. I recommend that we take a position of either amend or oppose this bill. So this bill would require that any meetings of public bodies to be live streamed. This school district as a public entity does a service to the community. Unlike most public entities statewide, we live stream our work sessions. We have been doing this for many years. We don't need to live stream our work sessions, but we do it nonetheless as a service to the community. The problem is this would then require for any work retreats. If this board wanted to hold a meeting outside of this building, we would then need to bring all of our equipment with us and make sure that we are live streaming that meeting. There's also a 24-hour posting requirement, so any documents that may be used during the meeting would need to be posted at least 24 hours in advance of the meeting. You must allow for remote testimony. If anybody wants to testify during public comment, you'd have to provide for remote testimony, and you'd also have to provide for auxiliary aids for anybody with a disability who may not be able to access the meeting. Again, this district does a really wonderful job of providing as a service to the community access to our meetings, but also as a service to this community, just at an abundance of caution, anytime 3 of you are at an event, we notice that to the public, even if you're not talking about district business, we do it as at an abundance of caution. Are we then gonna need to provide live streaming equipment when you're at a gala or a dinner? I don't know. It could be a requirement, right? So, you know, I'm certainly going to the far end of my fears here, but at the same time, it certainly will inhibit kind of some of the work that you all get to do and would kind of limit you to only being able to conduct board business here versus being able to go to a school or go to Ames or anywhere else like that. So, you know, I feel for George and Teresa's team in terms of doing all the work that they do with live streaming, and I just know it'd be a lot more work for them to do nonetheless.
This is pretty much aimed at Cherry Creek, correct?
I believe so, it is.
Yeah, okay.
And I will say that this is for all public meetings, so this would include the city of Greeley, this would include just really any board that's doing it. So I will say that most public entities are vehemently opposed to this bill because it just adds a lot of technical complications to conducting board business. But I believe it did come out of Cherry Creek.
The unfunded mandate too, because that would require lots more
Right.
manpower and equipment and, yeah.
Yeah, there weren't any allocations for funding to support that.
Yeah, but it's frustrating to see state law being introduced to address one school district or a couple school districts, and it feels like we've seen several of those already. So.
Right. And again, especially in this school district where we have for years been doing, in my opinion, a really wonderful job of supporting the community and providing access. It just adds an additional compliance feature that we need to meet, so. Last bill, Senate Bill 24049, Content of Material in Libraries. This was in front of the Senate Education Committee today. This bill is the book ban bill. This kind of came out of a lot of the book challenges that were seen statewide last year. And so this establishes some statutory objection processes to library resources, i.e. books. So anybody who wants to bring a complaint forward about a book would then need to follow the statutory process that would be created by this bill. The bill includes criteria language, it includes committee language, and then includes language that you cannot remove books while reconsideration is pending. I will say that I've been reached out to by many people statewide, both attorneys and lawmakers around this bill, because they know that Greeley has kind of been at the center of these book challenges, and they really want to know what our opinion is on this legislation. I recommend we take a position to monitor or amend because I think this takes away a lot of local control from school districts. I'm really proud of the work this school district has done in terms of its book challenge review. We have a very diligent process. It's a very thorough process. It's a very transparent process. We've established our own criteria that fits our needs. We have a committee that meets our needs. And this would just kind of take away a lot of the work that we've been doing. Although I will say that some of the criteria that's been recommended did come directly from Greeley because they really liked the work that we did. And I selfishly said we spent a lot of time and really thought through this criteria, and so I think it would be beneficial to include it in the state statute. But nonetheless, I don't think it's necessary to have a statute on this. Again, we do the work as we need to do it, and it just seems a little unnecessary to have this statutory burden in our place. So I'm not sure how the board feels about our book review process kind of today, but if there is a desire to have some kind of statutory requirements, then certainly we can take a different position, but I do feel quite strongly that we have a really good process here.
But Nate, this is for all libraries in the state. It's not just educational. I mean, I don't know if it is specific to schools or if it's for any sort of challenge anywhere.
A really good question. I actually don't know the answer to that. It is school and public libraries.
Mm-hmm. So it's a big one. It's a big issue.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I would just add, I am a part of the CASB FRN federal federal, I don't know, one of the ones that looks at laws. LRC is Legislation Regulation Committee. Anyway, so I got this from Matt Cook that was actually asking CASB Board of Directors if they would like to testify on the bill, which I guess was today. But so CASB is taking an official stance of oppose. They said it would infringe on the authority granted to locally elected boards of education by the Colorado Constitution. So just what you said, Nate. You know, we are one of only 8 states, I believe, that are local control when it comes to our school boards. And I think we highly value that, having local control and meeting the needs of our own community. I think these are the kinds of issues, that when they're meant to be positive and they're meant to be universal, but then it does take away that local control. It takes away the individualized personality, values, et cetera, of each community. So I think that's where that position from CASB comes from.
I think that's a really great point. And as we know with the book review process, community values are kind of key to our book review process. And so it's weird to have a state statute kind of aligning us with the state's community values versus what are our own. Well, thank you for that. The last thing I wanted to just kind of cover was the School Finance Act. You might not be surprised that this has not been introduced yet. It probably will not be introduced until April. We're still kind of going over the same old talking points. We do know that the budget stabilization factor will hopefully be eliminated this year. We know that there has been some added funding for special education, although we know that it's not fully funded. And I think there's still just some issues surrounding equity in the formula. So a lot of districts are really focusing in on cost of living as a need for school finance support. And in this district, that's not necessarily the issue. It's really all about at-risk students. And when I spoke with Ms. Sponsor, she said something that I thought was really great, and I didn't include, money should follow the student, right? And that's how we should be focusing our funding when it comes to equity in this state for school finance. So I think we're at odds with many school districts in the state because cost of living isn't the primary factor that we're concerned about. We're concerned about at-risk, we're concerned about ELL funding, special education funding, kind of all those other ways to fund our school district that isn't directly related to cost of living. I don't know if there's anything that I missed or that you'd like to add, Ms. Sponsor.
I'd just be open to any questions you might have.
I guess maybe I don't fully understand. I mean, cost of living affects our students in need more than the rest of them. So it kind of seems like it's just different ways of talking
The way
about
I
it.
see it is that, like, a Boulder teacher will always get paid more because her cost of living is so much higher.
Mhm.
And so then they fund the school system more so that those teachers get paid more. That's how I see cost of living. And so, like, we can't compete with Denver salaries, you know. And so when they're looking at that as part of the formula and not so much at-risk factors, like, we really lose money compared to some of these
Gotcha,
other
okay.
districts.
I was just thinking like the cost of living for every family has gone up, so that affects our students. But yeah, I understand that.
We also don't all pay the same mills. So
Right.
we pay the maximum. Our
that-
taxpayers pays 27 mills.
Yeah.
There are high cost of living areas in Colorado where they pay 4 mills, 5 mills. And so it would, not only would benefit this district, it would just be far more equitable to let money follow the students. But, go ahead, Ms. Sponsor.
Yeah, so you probably have heard that there was a school finance task force that was put together. It was part of the law that was passed last year. And so they had a very short amount of time to do some very complex work. But I think the general consensus is that people can get behind their recommendations. The catch is their recommendations included a fiscal note that would add somewhere between like $460 some million into school funding. State does not have $460 plus million just laying around to put in school funding. So I think what we are kind of hearing rumors around is that there might be an effort to adopt all but a portion of the recommendations. So that would mean that the cost of living factor as it is in the current School Finance Act would be gutted, basically. And in exchange, money would be put into the at-risk factor. That has a huge benefit to districts like ours, but districts like Jeffco, Cherry Creek, DPS to some extent, when you start defunding that cost of living factor, you're taking millions and millions and millions of dollars away from those districts. So it's going to be, it could get kind of ugly, I think, with districts having to choose sides and figure out where they fall on these sides of the issues. From what I've heard, this would not be something that would go into effect next year. It would go into effect in the 25-26 school year. So that gives us a little more time to kind of figure out how do we manage this transition. There has been a lot of conversation about hold harmless, and how do you hold harmless some of these districts that get the money for cost of living? Nobody really knows what that looks like and where to get the money to pay for that. So that seems to be kind of the thing that is holding up. Do we move forward with this? Do we not? How can we ease this transition? So difficult conversations to be had, definitely going forward.
When we say the budget stabilization factor will be eliminated, that just means they're not going to subtract this year. It's no back pay. And it's not to say that they wouldn't do it next year. It's just maybe this year we sort of break even.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not going away. It's being eliminated but not going away. How does that sound?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess who is at the top of the mountain then that's deciding how the funding's going to be paid out?
Well, I think the Speaker of the House has a vested interest in this, and she has been working very closely with the task force. And I do think the task force had a very diverse representation. So I think the fact that you could get that many people to kind of coalesce around the recommendations that they came up with, that's pretty impressive. I honestly didn't think they could get there, but they did. So now the question is, how do we fund it? And so we'll have to see how much money they can come up with and how we can move forward.
I feel like cost of living should not be completely eliminated, because it is true that living in Boulder is different.
It would just be a smaller piece of that in the whole order of operations of the school finance formula. It would be moved down the path. So right now it's one of the very first calculations that happens, so it trickles down and impacts everything else. It'd be put towards the end of the calculation.
And wasn't there a bill that was to try to get this decision made earlier in the legislative session?
Yes.
Did that happen?
I have never seen that move forward.
Okay. Did it get passed?
I don't think so.
Oh,
I don't think so either.
All right.
I think it's wishful thinking.
Yeah.
So this will be on hold for the foreseeable future. I mean, it's.
I think we'll start to see things ramping up here in the next month. I think that they'll probably try to run two parallel paths with trying to figure out funding for next year, but then also funding for future years. And I think they'll try to do both at the same time. So that'll be interesting.
Mm-hmm. I just don't see how they're going to get to a compromise between the two different types of needs.
Yes.
I don't see how they'll do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll try to think positively.
The squeaky wheel gets the oil.
We hope.
We hope.
It's not been the case so far.
So far.
I do like universal mills, like everyone pays the same bills, but don't know if that will ever go anywhere.
Yeah. Any other questions for Mr. Fall or Ms. Sponsler? Well, thank you both for the update. And we're now to debriefing the work session. So, let's see. We'll start with you, Taylor.
I just want to really congratulate you. It just sounds like you are just reaching milestones, and you're growing so much over this last year. And you got me kind of choked up when you talked about your mama. So thank you for being so open and raw and being willing to share. But I do think politics somewhere is in your pathway. Maybe it's a minor. If it's not your major, who knows? But thank you for sharing that, because that was neat to see it through your eyes. I've been there. I've walked through the Capitol. I've attended those sessions. So to see it and hear your visions were it was very insightful. So thank you for sharing. And Mr. Fall, thank you for, again, always bringing these and taking our questions and helping us to understand and have the insight for this.
Thank you, Taylor. Brenda?
Yeah, thanks Nate for the really great update. That was a lot, a lot of information. And I feel like you're an expert on all of them. It's so cool to see you digest that for us and help us think through it. And yes, Natalie, thanks so much. Your very recent memory of not winning ECA president or school body president reminded me of a memory that I had while I was in high school. So have you ever seen the movie Boy State? No, it's a documentary, actually. If nobody has seen it, you should watch it. But there's this thing called Girl State and Boy State in this country, where every state from different high schools across the state, you all get together at a university campus and you do an election, and everybody has the same amount of materials, so like nobody has a leg up on anyone as far as like campaigning. And then whoever wins that state competition, then there's National Girl State and there's National Boy State. And you can elect like a girl state president or a boy state president. Anyway, from my high school, I was elected to go to Girl State, just my state, little girl state. And it was my first time, like as a high schooler, trying to think of like campaign strategies and like talking in public and trying to convince your peers to vote for you. I also did not win my election in Girl State, and definitely did not move on to Washington, D.C. But yes, don't let that be the end of political aspirations for you. I think it's wonderful that your parents see that in you. But yeah.
Thank you for the update, getting a chance to go up to the state and see what goes on up there. And remember, when you didn't get elected as student body president, Michael Jordan didn't make his varsity basketball team first attempt. So don't give up. Chase your dreams. All right? And thank you for being here too. And Councilor Fall, as always, thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Kyle?
Yeah, same. Thank you guys for the updates. Fun to watch you guys, the student council reps, get around and seeing how professional. And I just really liked your comments you said on the tour of all the fun things that you kind of were sharing with the other kids at Casby, and then just kind of realizing that it is a pretty cool place to be, you know. So that was fun to hear from your perspective. So thank you guys for everything.
Doran?
Ditto. Times two. You're an amazing person, obviously, and you represent an entire group of students who are the same way. I'm very, very impressed, and very impressed with our legal counsel as well and his work for the school district and seeing it in action at the Capitol. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Doran. Natalie?
Natalie, thanks for being such an ambassador for District 6. I always love to hear your comments, and you encourage me as a board member, and I think all of us when you talk about how much you love ECA and just the district in general. And it is so, I don't know, just kind of awe-inspiring, breathtaking to go in that building. I always want to like come down those staircases and like a ball gown or something. I don't know. It's so beautiful in there. So yeah, thank you for sharing your experience, and yep, thank you for the update, Nate.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Great meeting. We appreciate the time that you put into this, Natalie. Hopefully this, you feel like it's a benefit to you as well. And so thank you, Mr. Fall. And we are adjourned.